calling all instructional coaches, curriculum specialists, teachers on special assignment, or whatever they call you. I'm Matthaeus Huelse.
And I'm Katie Ritter. As instructional coaches, we are often responsible for our own professional learning and can sometimes feel pretty isolated in our role.
That's why we're here, bridging the gap with a wealth of tips, tricks, and building a community of coaches.
So hit the restart button with us.
Recharge your coaching batteries.
And hopefully you'll leave feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
Welcome back to Restart Recharge. Today we present you part 1 of 2 about a tool that's generating a lot of buzz in education right now. We want to talk about NotebookLM. We're joined by Bryson Min-Ryan, our resident expert on NotebookLM and our Assistant Director of Learning and Development. He brings extensive experience in implementing innovative tech solutions within educational settings, and together we'll uncover how instructional coaches and adult learners can leverage this powerful platform to not only boost their own productivity, but also to enhance collaboration. So welcome to the pod, Bryson.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Long time coming. I've been looking forward to this moment.
I've been kind of teasing you about it too until we finally get the episode
for
recorded.
A few minutes, for sure.
I love that he's looking forward to being on the pod. That's awesome. Bryson, let me just add just a little bit to your background. You, for a number of years, have been one of our on-site desktop technicians and then a technology coordinator. You've been overseeing teams of on-site technicians working in schools every day on a bit more of the IT side of things. And recently, you've come in-house here at Forward Edge, focused on internal employee learning and development. And right now you're kind of dabbling in two worlds. You're in K-12 schools every day, working and leading a team, but then you're also back here at the office supporting Forward Edge employees from a learning and development standpoint. So Matthaeus and I are super excited about both of these perspectives that you're going to bring for our audience to get to learn from you in the multitude of applications for this incredible tool that we are super big fans of as well. So let's get started. And first, would you just, for anyone who does not know what NotebookLM is, would you explain what it is for listeners?
Yeah, for sure. First off, I want to thank you both for the lovely introductions I got. It's been a bit of a whirlwind seeing firsthand how the technology impacts the schools and then getting an opportunity to come back here to Forward Edge and share those opportunities with our staff here as well. One of the platforms that has really changed the game for us in terms of how we approach learning, solutions, and overall support has been NotebookLM. NotebookLM is a Gemini-based product that acts as a research companion in a way, if we look at its original intention, to support the consolidation of resources of all different media, like Google Docs or websites or YouTube videos, and allows you to create a very custom-tailored research assistant for you. But the underlying principle of what this can do in using AI to analyze a variety of resources actually allows us to adapt it to many use cases across departments and fields to really enable anyone to find those AI capabilities with it.
So what makes it really different from just going to Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever LLM you like to use? What makes NotebookLM different from these normal tools that we usually hear about?
Yeah, so the core function and the greatest benefit of NotebookLM is the fact that we are able to define the scope of what the platform uses. So what you see in traditional large language models, they have these vast training sets that companies like Google, Meta, or OpenAI are training on literally everything they can scour on the internet, which in some ways brings a breadth of knowledge, but in other ways brings almost an ocean of, at the same time, irrelevant knowledge to what we are actively working on. What NotebookLM allows us to do when we bring those sources together is set that boundary so that Notebook only operates off of the sources that we're providing to it. So again, we can provide that custom tailored AI-powered experience in whatever use cases we look to adapt this to.
And those, when you say when those sources we add, just to kind of connect some of the dots, right? So that's at the beginning you said you can add Google Docs, slides, website links, YouTube links, upload PDFs, right? Those are the sources you're talking about that then as you're having and engaging with, am I summarizing that correctly.
Yeah, you're right on the money with that one. The strength of NotebookLM is the variety of media and documentation that we can bring into this. So, like you said, Google Docs, Google Slides integrates right into that Google Workspace suite that we're familiar with. But websites, PDFs, YouTube videos, even audio or video files, we can upload all of that and allow NotebookLM to help us process through all of that information.
That's awesome. So for our listeners who are predominantly instructional coaches and folks in teacher support roles, I don't want to necessarily go down the teacher path because that's going to be part, am I not supposed to say? But for our coach learners, you might think about adding information about your school's website, specific curriculum programs. Maybe you have curriculum maps outlined in either PDFs or Google Docs. We can add all of this very specific information to our own setting and then begin to engage, ask questions around our curriculum materials, our teachers' curriculum materials, our PD plans that we have in place, so on and so forth. I think we might dive into some more of those things. But are there any unique or super interesting features that particularly drew you to NotebookLM beyond being able to narrow down to your own source documentation?
You know, NotebookLM, it has quite a number of features outside of just bringing these sources together. But what I found has been really critical to the different use cases that I've had finding success is the variety of ways that are pre-built within NotebookLM to display the information you're looking for. It also has some pre-built things that allow us to do timelines, FAQs for resources we've consolidated, or even bring an AI-hosted podcast into the situation as well to overview what we have going for it. So
say more about that podcast feature.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yeah.
I figured that would be the one that catches the most attention.
You waited. You mentioned that last.
I did. Well, you gotta end on the good stuff, right? The best for last.
That's true.
There we go. Say more. Describe that for listeners who maybe haven't experienced or actually seen NotebookLM before.
Yeah, so at the surface level, you see NotebookLM. You're like research assistant. I can put all these sources in here. I can ask you questions about those. All fine and good. But what really makes it transformative is the feature that they call the audio overview. And what the audio overview does is it takes those sources that you've added, as well as any guidance that you want to provide to it, and it turns it into a podcast hosted by AI-generated podcast hosts to then give you another medium with which to understand that content.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild. I mean, they're not as good as Matthaeus and I, but
Obviously not.
It is.
Although
it is shocking.
They do sound very, very natural, I'll say. Sometimes I don't sound as natural as they do, I think. So now the newest thing that I heard about was interactive mode. Have you used it? What is that?
I have, and if we want to continue this train of Uncanny Valley, we have this now AI-hosted podcast that's giving us an overview of the content we put together. But now we can take it a step further with interactive mode, one of the newest features in it, to actually step into that conversation with those AI hosts to ask it questions and give it our thoughts on the topic at hand. And it will interact in real time with us, providing those answers, providing their insights as well.
Yeah, I remember trying it the first time, and we don't have that feature here at the podcast. But apparently when you hit the button, it just says, oh, we have a caller, and then you can just start interacting and asking questions, which is hilarious.
How do we add that feature to this podcast?
I don't know. That would require us to be live, Katie. We can't be live. All right. So this is cool. So we looked at the tool a little bit and see what it does. Essentially, it can answer questions about my files, which is super neat. Now, let's talk a little bit about use cases. What does it look like for an adult learner doing professional development? How can someone that is leading professional development use something like NotebookLM for their own purposes?
The core of it is that we can custom tailor the sources that NotebookLM works with. So when we think about adult learning or these learning initiatives that we're trying to push out, step one in elevating that is creating an environment tailored to those learning or coaching initiatives. Once we do that and we add in our sources about a program plan that we have, feedback that we've gotten about it, the different activities we want to do, or the different trainings we want to lead, suddenly we now have an AI-tailored coaching or learning solution that is able to help us do different sorts of analytics or different sorts of trend interpretation on the programs, learn from them, adapt them without having to scour through every single piece of feedback, every single training that we've put together, and really allow us to build more comprehensive programs.
You know what? When Bryson just said that, that made me think, like, for our main audience who's listening to this, I think about coaching cycle that our audience would be going in, right?
Yeah.
And taking notes in a Google Doc or whatever documentation you're probably already using in the context of your coaching cycle conversations with teachers, your observation notes, and can you load all of that in a NotebookLM to then maybe you're struggling to think about that reflective conversation that you need to have.
I've done this before where I would put notes for my coaching meetings and my coaching cycles and transcripts from the meetings themselves. Another cool thing I saw, I don't know if that's going to turn to a question, I'm going to try, was how admin have used it. Because you mentioned feedback. That made me think coaches will use it and like maybe load their content from the teacher in their meetings and their coaching cycles. But admin might do it for things like teacher review. Like I've seen admin upload the Danielson framework into NotebookLM, followed up with observation notes that they've had, and then ask it to come up with questions, which I thought was super cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, to jump in there, I've seen something similar with how admins approach departmental initiatives within schools. Teachers have the opportunity to work with the coaches and develop ways to implement teaching objectives specific to their department. And then through the notebook, the admins have been able to glean information or get insights on the initiatives that the departments are taking without necessarily always having to be like constantly there, constantly in the know. Because I know we're all very busy. So to be able to use NotebookLM to kind of give us a glimpse and all of the insights that we need to make these key decisions or to support the individuals that we need to without having to be everywhere at once is incredible innovation that's come from it.
So if you were an admin that has never used this before, or you were a coach that has never used it before, what would be the tip you'd give them as a first step? Like, okay, maybe you want to explore it. What would you tell them? Okay, here's how you get started. Here's what you should consider doing.
So I think the very first step, and this is universally applicable to how I encourage anyone to interact with a variety of AI platforms, is just get in there and start playing around with it and using it and getting familiar with it. Because it's always that apprehension at first of, I've never interacted with this platform before. What can I do with it? When I first saw NotebookLM, I hit that wall, I hit that blank page where I thought, all right, so it's a research tool. I'm not really doing research. How can I play around with it? I took a Google Doc that I had, I would throw it in there, I would ask questions about it. And suddenly the train starts rolling and the gears start turning and it was like, oh, I could do this. So once you get comfortable with it, just throw them in there, start asking questions and play around with it. That's how you will gradually refine that process and eventually have something that transforms your approach.
Yeah. It sounds like you just got to take the deep dive and try it. You just got to try stuff out.
Yeah, that also made me think, and I feel like the three of us for sure have done this ourselves too. And I'm thinking like connect some dots for our listeners in the context of your PD programs that you're leading, right? So for those of you where it's not necessarily one-off PD sessions, but maybe it's a year and you're supporting a brand new curriculum adoption you're collecting along the way, external resources like the actual curriculum resources, etc. That can also be a really powerful facilitator tool. For yourself, I want to kind of flip the script from individual use and think about how we can use NotebookLM to facilitate collaboration or to support and foster collaboration, because we know that piece is really important for adult learners, right? How do we get adults talking to each other so we can grow? If we flip the script from how I can use it or get started personally, which is great, but once we've gotten started, how can we help support collaboration among other adults?
Yeah, great question. And one of the key advantages of NotebookLM is that it does allow sharing with other people so that you can collaborate within it. I'm going to take two perspectives to that question that you brought up. And the first, let's think about internal collaboration. If I'm working with other instructional designers or coaches are getting together, we can all contribute into the notebook. We have a much more unified approach to what we're doing, which can increase buy-in and engagement from the learners that we work with because their programs continue to be more familiar to them.
Bryson, I'm going to ask you to dig just a little bit deeper in that because I think you're talking about the example that we actually had you share company-wide. Will you share how you first implemented it with a team at Hamilton?
So, throwback to where it all began. I had a team of IT technicians. So we're pivoting the script here from technical staff, but this really highlights the universal applications that Notebook can support with. I wanted to find a way to make that accessible to my technicians so that when they're out in the field, they have quick, reliable, and pertinent information accessible to them. They would take all the resolutions that they had on help desk tickets, and we started accumulating that into a Google Doc. We took that Google Doc and we put it in a notebook. We took manuals of equipment that we had, we put it in a notebook. We took warranty policies. There's really extensive documents full of legal jargon that only the lawyers understand, and we put it into NotebookLM. This isn't a large language model that's just scouring the internet for answers. It's again focused to the school district we're in, so now my technicians were able to feel empowered and find more agency in the work that they do and more independence in it because they had a reliable source of information. As a team, we are able to collaborate and bring together, and then again, as a team, continue to find success with by being able to utilize this platform on a day-to-day basis.
I love that. So many applications, like onboarding information for teachers and staff in your schools, curriculum maps and lesson plans for teachers in particular content areas. I think of like our tech coaches. What tech tools do they actually have access to, and curriculum programs do they actually have access to, and how do we build that out and help align that to these district goals and initiatives better? Just so many uses.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity here is documents that have these pieces of information in there all the time. Like, oh yeah, we have this document that tells you how to do this process, and nobody looks at it. Nobody's got time to go into the actual document. But now you have this collaborative approach where you can keep everything there, you can update it live, but you also now are putting this layer of an easy, approachable, natural language approach where I can just ask questions and get my answers reliably from my document. That, I think, such a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Kid, you know what time it is?
Time for a quick break from our sponsors.
Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer of 2025. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2025. You can either join us virtually July 22nd through 24th, or come to Cincinnati on July 28th and 29th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Coaches, feeling stuck, seeing potential, but struggling to ignite change? You are not alone. What if there was a structured path, a proven framework for impactful, sustainable change? We are introducing the Core of Coaching framework. It's a practical tool to help you build relationships, achieve sustainable change in teacher practice, drive organizational shifts, and achieve those lasting results that you are dying to see. This framework isn't theory. It's grounded in experience, collaboration, and research. We've partnered with leaders and learned from coaches nationwide. It's a data-driven tool to help you guide systemic change at your organization. Download the Core of Coaching framework for free at forward-edge.net/core of coaching. Welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. We have Bryson Min-Ryan here talking all things NotebookLM and how it can support you in your day-to-day work as a coach, supporting adult learners, and even some extra techie benefits with NotebookLM. Bryson, real quick, couple of quick questions for you before we wrap up here. One, I'm curious, how many sources can we add to NotebookLM as of February 26, 2025?
Yeah. Has to be in there because it's not going to stay like that.
It very well could be outdated when this episode airs.
Yeah, AI certainly moves quickly and it changes just as rapidly. But as of right now, if you jump into NotebookLM, you can add up to 100 sources into your notebook. So already super comprehensive. But you can take it a step further with NotebookLM Plus, and in that you got 300 sources with a context limit that's sky high. So for as many resources as you can add into the notebook, you should have plenty of room to bring those together and pull the insights you can. As an avid notebook user, not even I have come close to hitting the limit. It's a really flexible and generous software on that front.
Yeah, and just to add some quick clarification for listeners, NotebookLM Plus, you can get that either through a paid Gmail account. You can also get that if your school EDU domain has purchased the Gemini for Education add-on. You would then have access to NotebookLM Plus. Shameless plug. You can select Forward Edge to lead your free PD through 2025 if you do purchase that add-on.
Super smooth. Well done.
And then my last question that I really want to make sure to touch, because we've talked about potentially some sensitive things, right? Teachers may be spinning or coaches might be spinning about some student information. So I do think it's really important for us to highlight some high notes around the privacy with NotebookLM.
I think it's really good that you bring that up because, true, cybersecurity is always at the forefront when it comes to K-12, especially when it has to do with student data or confidential information. Mm-hmm. What we can be reassured with is that in an education domain within your district or school account, if you jump onto NotebookLM right now, regardless of the version, education domains have privacy protections. Whatever interactions are happening within it, they're not referencing external databases. So your information is secured. If you have that NotebookLM Plus version, that privacy and security extends to that as well.
So bottom line, if I'm using my school work account, then my data will be safe if I use NotebookLM. And I'm FERPA compliant.
That said, we'll add a quick clause there that we should always be prudent about any information that we are putting out there, especially since we're linking it as sources. So while it may exist in NotebookLM, you put it somewhere else first. So I will wash my hands of that.
All right. I thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. Our last question. What are your top 3 tips for our listeners that are jumping into NotebookLM?
Top 3 tips. First and foremost, go use NotebookLM. Hopefully we've excited you about it here today. But as with any AI tool, the best way to learn about it is to just get hands-on with it. So start there, start playing around with it, and see what you can begin to come up with there.
How do they get to NotebookLM?
To get to NotebookLM, you can go to notebooklm.google.com.
That is correct, yeah.
Tip 2.
Tip 2. NotebookLM relies on our sources. So maintaining the quality of those sources means that you maintain the quality of the insights and the outputs that you're getting from NotebookLM. If we're taking teaching notes, ensure we're keeping those up to date, ensure that we're taking down relevant information, or we're standardizing how we're approaching those one-on-ones. If we maintain the quality of those sources, we maintain the quality of the insights that we can pull out of those sources. All right. And I think the last and most exciting one, as we mentioned before the break, was the capability of NotebookLM to really generate a number of different mediums with which we can continue to do that supplemental training. So it's one thing to bring all of these resources together and for us to get what we need out of it. But it's another to be able to collaborate with those we're attempting to support through coaching or learning. So we can make a notebook public facing.
Love that.
Right.
Really empowering our learners that way.
Indeed. So what if our listeners would love to hunt you down and ask you more questions about NotebookLM? Where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Bryson Min-Ryan, and you'll see me up there, finding all sorts of ways to empower tomorrow's learners.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Awesome. Bryson, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this part 1. I'm also super stoked. Tune back in a few weeks because we're going to have a teacher talking about all of the ways that NotebookLM could be used to directly support teachers and teaching and learning in the classroom. I'm taking this a step further.
Exactly right. And listeners, if you want to give us some feedback, reach out to us on Instagram, find us on Apple Music, Spotify.
Or take our YouTube videos and stick them in a NotebookLM.
Exactly. Plus, if you just really wanted to know what this looks like when we're here being crazy talking to each other, there's video evidence of it now, so you can check it out on YouTube.
Which I'm not happy about because I quit caring what I looked like for these podcast recordings when we no longer did video. Now the last one, my hair is a wild mess.
Hey, dear listeners, both of us have hair appointments coming up, so don't take us too seriously in this episode.
Thank you, Bryson. Thank you all.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with an educator friend.
And connect with us on social media at RRCoachCast to let us know what you thought of the episode and what topics you want us to discuss next.
New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.